Okay, welcome back to the Adventure Within channel. My name is Andrew Fritz. I'm a clairvoyant, healer, and meditation teacher. And today we have an interview with Sean Callahan. He's the founder and CEO of USA MedBed and Healthy Life Technology. With more than a decade in medical equipment distribution and a lifelong passion for health and wellness innovation, Sean has built two companies that bridge the gap between modern medical care and energy-based healing. He is a speaker, entrepreneur, podcaster, and visionary leader in the future of integrative health solutions.
Well, Andrew, I love meeting people like yourself that are out doing good in the world, that are
Sure.
taking the time to spread the message and, you know, and do, what we would just say service to others and
Hmm.
making the world a better place to live. So with all that being said, maybe starting off here, I can get a little information about you and learn a little bit about yourself as well,
Yeah.
um, in your
Yeah.
channel, because it's amazing channel.
Oh, appreciate that. Yeah, so basically, I grew up outside of Philly and I moved to Chicago for art school. And my roommate in the second semester finally opened up to me. He's from California and he's like, "Hey, I'm into spirituality." He let me borrow one of his books. That's where kind of my spiritual awakening began, just from reading the book. And that's
What was the
when I
book?
real You Are the Answer by Michael Tamara.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, so just reading that I kind of started to wake up and go, whoa, okay, I'm not my physical body. I'm, a spiritual being, but I have a physical body. And he was like, he found this school not too far away from our art school downtown. And he's like, hey, you want to get an R reading? And I'm just like, I'm in my early 20s. I'm like, I'd never heard of that. I didn't come from a spiritual background, a religious background.
Mhm.
And he's like, do you want to get an R reading? I'm like, I don't know what that is, man, but yeah, let's do it. Sure, let's go for it. And we get there, we get into this small room, and I've got, I think, at least two people in front of me lined up. And there's it's considered like a main chair, like the main reader, then like a side chair, the side reader. And they gave me an R reading. They're reading the energy field around my physical body, the different layers, and they're describing images and colors. And I was like, this is awesome. And I was like, at the end, I was like, how did you do that? Or what is this? I didn't know you could do this or this was a thing. And it turns out they were a school. Like they taught meditation classes and energy healing and clairvoyant trainings. So I signed up for like everything there, and I did that for quite a while, and that's how I got into this. So
Exciting. That is
yeah,
awesome. And
yep.
what is the name of the website? What is the name of the channel?
It's the Adventure Within channel, and it's adventurewithin.co is my website.
.co. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful
Yeah.
stuff.
Definitely. Um, but yeah, I'm excited to learn more about you and get the better understanding of what med beds are and grounding technology and the infrared and all that. So, and then feel free, just the way you did, you can keep your camera the way you had it before. But if you want to move it around during the interview and show things, like go for it. That's cool
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. And the beauty about what we're doing is that, and we kind of talked a little bit before we went live, is that a lot of what we do, even though it's med bed type technology, it does get into uh, activating more spiritual uh, enhancement, I guess. It's more about developing a lot of our spiritual gifts. That school that you're talking about in Chicago,
Mm.
that sounds like, like a normal school that you'd have in India,
Mm.
where all these different things are part of the culture. Right here, it's a little bit segmented. It's not as much mainstream. Over there, that is their reality. That is how they grow up. Those are normal things that they learn. And so I refer to it as Vedic culture.
Hmm.
But if you get into the Arya Vedas and all the different types of knowledge bases, it tells and shows you how to enhance your intuition, your
Mm.
perception. It gets into astral projection and lucid
Mm.
dreaming and all these things. And this is their form of, maybe you might, I mean, it's an easy way to kind of put it under the map of yoga,
Yeah.
but we really do have a lot of powerful gifts. And in the West, we're very advanced from a technology perspective, but from a spiritual perspective, we're still infants, for the most part, as a
Yeah.
whole.
Right.
And so, but the medbed technology is really beautiful because, ultimately mind, body, spirit. And, the first thing always that medbeds talk about are going to be the body. And so it's the body conditions that usually get the most attention from medbeds. And it's actually, really good timing that you would bring this up, because I do obviously talk about it a lot. But I had a guy yesterday from Michigan
Mm.
who has three what we would call wellness centers.
Mm.
And the initial conversation started off about hyperbaric chambers And one of the things that I also do is I'm in the medical industry. So I sell medical equipment for a living.
Mm.
And there's a lot of hyperbaric technology now that's coming out that's much more affordable than what you'll find in a hospital. And it's a lot easier to use. Like hospital grade stuff, you're going to require a different set of permitting. And it's almost like getting into a torpedo tube where you're going to get in, they're going to seal the tube and you're done, you know? But with the home care hyperbaric stuff, you know, you can get in, zip yourself out, or slide a panel over. You can control it and do it all. And it goes by, the rating is what we call atmospheres, and hospital grade equipment will be 2 atmospheres. The home care will be 1.5, but it's still very powerful. But it's another introduction, another technology that's making its way to the general public so that
Mm.
people can start enjoying the benefits. The thing that was interesting is that this gentleman has something called a theta chamber,
Mm.
which we can talk about. But med beds themselves are basically forms of energy and frequency based technology that are designed to enhance wellness and enhance, you know, healing capacities for the body, basically. And there's a lot of different modalities and a lot of different technologies that can do that. This gentleman was obviously pretty well versed, and he's, you know, talking about PEMF and red light and a lot of these different things. And I guess while I'm on that subject, I'll just kind of reach over here,
Yeah.
give people a little quick peek. Now, this is our celestial pod right here. And let me see here. I'm really, everything's opposite when you're moving the camera.
Sure, sure.
But
You're
this
good.
this technology right here has 7 different modalities, 7 different technologies that are in it. If we come over here, this is our dual tube plasma energy system called Phi-Ray. And to date, right now, this is the most powerful piece of technology that I have found on the planet Earth that's available for everyday people. And this is, we'll get into explaining it, but it has that computer there and then 2 plasma tubes right there, which
Mm.
are, we'll talk about, but that's inscribed, that's technology inscribed in pyramids, in hieroglyphics that for us, it's new. It's medbed technology, but this was being used thousands of years ago. And then if we come over here, you'll see obviously we've got, well, we don't need the bottle there. We've got the red light technology and far infrared technology, which is also really popular now. It's got a lot of FDA clearance. Um, and then down here towards the other part of the room, we've got, well, that's an oxygen generator, that white piece of equipment on the far right that puts out 91% oxygen. So I don't have hyperbaric in here, but to oxygenate the body, I can do it with, you know, putting in a mask and wearing and breathing 91% oxygen, which is very much like you see in professional sports. They come
Hmm.
off the field, they put on a mask, they're breathing oxygen. And then back by the red cabinets, we've got the Tesla multi-wave oscillators. And then we also have oscillators that are kind of um, down next to the oxygen chamber. And this is one room, and we've got several rooms where we have, you know, different technologies in there. But really what it comes down to is, if you know, to go kind of do a little history lesson, as Tesla said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think energy, frequency, and vibration.
Hmm.
And as Einstein said, the future of medicine will be the medicine of frequencies. And
Mm.
so when we're talking about energy and frequency based technology, we can get into sound frequency, which is super powerful, red light technology. Chromotherapy technically is kind of like analyzing spectrums of light, which also have frequencies. And then we get into PEMF, which is something that you physically touch or have contact with that sends frequency through the body that way. And then ultimately, photon or light energy, which we work on with the plasma energy systems. And there's other technologies that work with that, which might be something like an EE system. So, you know, there's a lot of different technology. Now, if you encapsulate the technology into a pod format,
Mm.
it conjures up the terminology of a med bed, right?
Right.
But
And what is
as you,
that?
as,
What
go
does that?
ahead, bro.
Yeah, sorry. So what does that stand for? Is that medical bed, meditation bed? Just a
Well, it has multiple conjures for me because I sell hospital beds also for a living.
sure.
A medical bed can technically be that. But what they're really referring to when they say the term med bed they're referring to off-planet based technology that basically is super powerful, very advanced. It does come in sort of like a capsule type formation, and then you lay in it, and within the period of days or weeks or normally even hours or a day, it can do semi-miraculous things. And that technology does exist. However, the general public does not have access to it yet. And I would, for anybody that thinks that that's coming out anytime soon, I think that with the way things are going right now, that's definitely getting pushed far, far, far back on the soon to be released list, which is the
Hmm.
government
Oh,
form of
okay.
that.
Right.
Doesn't mean that there's not a lot of powerful technology out there now. There is. That's why, when we start talking about these, like I was just talking earlier about a theta chamber. Well, a theta
Hmm.
chamber, if you looked at that, that thing spins, you're fully encapsulated, all kinds of lights. It has multiple technologies, but what that's really trying to do is get your brain waves into a theta state, which technically gets you out of modes of depression. It's really good for depression. It's good for chemical dependency or alcohol abuse, PTSD.
Hmm.
That is a chamber and that is a technology in a pod that's really designed and implemented to perform those types of tasks.
Hmm.
So when you start getting into medbed type technology, what you're really doing is looking at what it is that they're actually using for the technology. And in my experience with the knowledge that I have, plasma-based energy technology is by far the most powerful technology that's available to us right now. And it doesn't necessarily need to be encapsulated into a pod format. Actually, it's a lot cheaper, easier, and more accessible if you strip the technology out of the pod, get the
Hmm.
price down, and get it into a format where it's more affordable and people can get access to it. And I have multiple plasma energy based technologies here. The one that you just saw, which is the Phi Ray,
Hmm.
is right now, like I said, the most powerful piece of technology on the planet. Now, what's actually happening there is that you've got two plasma domes, two plasma balls, domes, and each one of those is sending frequencies, and they're spiraling into the center, which we would refer to that as centripetal. Centrifugal, as you know, on a merry-go-round, you spin that thing and you're going to fly off the outside
Oh.
of it. But centripetal is the exact opposite. As it spins, you're funneling it into the center and it accelerates to the point where there is a point of implosion. And because there's two tubes, one on each side, and they're both pushing the signal to the center, both those signals are imploding in what we call a 0 point, which is the actual area that your body is in.
Hmm.
And so what's happening is they're sending massive bandwidths of frequency sets there. But as that implosion happens, it creates this spectrum of some of the most beneficial frequency sets for the body. And because it's plasma energy, which is the energy of the soul and your consciousness, which is plasma,
Hmm.
it starts becoming what we call recursive, meaning it starts doing this.
Hmm.
It's almost like the shape of a heart.
Hmm.
And it could also be called a toroidal or torus field, I guess sometimes it's referred to. But what's happening there is that that energy field, as it starts to develop and grow, actually taps into the frequency set that your DNA runs on. And
Hmm.
so it taps into your DNA, and therefore it becomes a mindful and intelligent energy field. And so that's a really, like if you want to talk about med beds, you start talking about energy fields that are mindful and intelligent, and
Sure.
you're deep diving into some real heavy, almost sci-fi type stuff. Now,
That's strong. Just to pause,
yeah,
just because, for myself or like the average viewer, some of the
yeah,
terms people might not fully understand. So, like, say, for instance, the med bed behind you, that one. If someone were to have a session in that, lie down in that, I suppose, what what are some of the benefits, maybe from like a physical perspective to like emotional, mental, and then, like you said, even like spiritual benefits. Can you walk through that just a little bit?
absolutely. And each
Okay.
one of these will do something a little bit different.
Right.
Now, I have like about maybe 7 or 8 different modes or technologies that we use here. And the reason I do is because each one does something a little bit different. The benefits are a little bit different.
Yeah.
How it works is a little bit different, but it's a culmination of using multiple forms of technology that ultimately give you the best possible outcome. But let's talk about the celestial pod. So the
Okay.
celestial pod is going to run terahertz frequency. Terahertz is an optimal frequency for cell vibration. It's one of the optimal frequencies that I always kind of refer that your cells dance to
Hmm.
is kind of one of the ways I like to say it. There's certain frequency sets that when your body hears it, it's like fingernails going down a chalkboard, which
Right.
is going to be stuff like coming off of a router or stuff that's just
Mm.
not conducive to what your cells enjoy and what's good for you in some cases. Terahertz then is an optimal frequency to charge the cells. It's really good for stiffness, soreness, different things. It has ozone, negative ions. It
Mm.
has vibration. So there is a vibrational aspect to this. And then as you can see, I don't know if you can see, but you've got the
Hmm.
little red dots on the panel down below here.
Yeah.
And then you do have red light up in the back of it as well. But it has red light technology. It has magnets and so magnetic, and then it has crystals. And then you also have chromotherapy, gyrotherapy kind of gets into some of the magnetic things that are in there. But from a standpoint of what does the thing do, which is
Yeah.
probably the best question, right?
Hmm.
It's really ideal for cleansing the lymphatic system and
Mm.
getting all the garbage out of your body and draining the garbage. It's really good for people that have a lot of muscle pain, back pain especially.
Mm.
It has a lot of a cleansing effect because there is a heat element that we can turn the heat up on that and sweat out toxic material. And then it's optimal for, sending energy in the body and sort of charging the body. So
Mm.
generally speaking, because there's multiple technologies going on simultaneously and people get out, they're somewhat euphoric. There, I have actually a chair right next to it because when you get out of it, it's ideal to have a minute or two to kind of
Oh, yeah. Compose
reset your
yourself.
base. Yeah, and just kind of get your base back to you a little bit. But the lymphatic system is a really big system that's not getting enough attention, and a lot of toxic material can build up in the lymph nodes, and it's good for cleansing all that out. So it's really like for me, it's a really good starter technology because it does relax people as well.
Hmm.
And then when you're going into the plasma system then is basically running like this massive bandwidth of frequencies through the body. And the reason it's doing that is because every part of the body resonates at a different frequency.
Mm.
And so there's some technology that's out there. The plasma systems come in two different forms, a single tube and a dual tube.
Hmm.
And to just even back up a second, just to give a little more explanation about plasma,
Sure.
because it does sometimes conjure up the plasma that you have in your blood,
Hmm.
which is actually interesting because the molecular structure of that is somewhat similar to plasma. But plasma itself is the fourth state of matter. So you have solid, liquid, gas, and then
Mm.
basically what happens when gas gets hit with a lot of energy, it just destroys the molecular structure of the gas and it converts it into plasma. And then from there, the plasma energy, like I said earlier, is the most powerful energy field that you can work with. So what's interesting is the sun is plasma, right? And
Mm.
the sun is actually a very mindful and intelligent energy field. I love the background that you've got because to
Mm.
me, that is what we're not really discovering anything new. We're rediscovering what the ancients, we call them the ancients, what the ancients already knew. And the
Hmm.
ancients, if anybody out there, I know you're very hip to this, Andrew, but
Hmm.
for the most part, the sun was worshipped like a god, right?
Hmm.
And before I came hip to a lot of this stuff, I thought, well, these guys, they needed the sun to grow plants. So obviously they had the sun all over and that was their god. But it was actually way deeper than that. They were actually able to connect and sort of communicate with the sun. And there's times where there was a song that was sung by like a large number of kids at one time, and they
Mm.
were actually able to measure the effect that it had on the sun when the song sung directly to when the song directly to the sun
Sun. Yeah.
were actually being done. So the other thing that's plasma energy that also is very interesting are thunderstorms, lightning storms. Those are also mindful and intelligent energy fields. And Aboriginal people, Native American people here in the US, they were super hip and connected to this. This also kind of gets into grounding, but
Mm.
they were able to steer and manipulate plasma energy fields, aka they could make it rain. They had the ability to communicate and manipulate the energy that was all around us. And
And you mentioned,
so,
You mentioned grounding. Just for those that are maybe new to that term, what is grounding? Just a basic definition of that.
Yeah, so basically, grounding and earthing are two synonymous names for the same thing. Earthing would be technically, they call it earthing when you're physically touching the earth. Grounding is basically doing the exact same thing, but doing it through a different type of material, which would be like what we have here, which I can also show you
Yeah,
because
sure.
we have this everywhere. This is grounding blankets, and
Okay.
so and I'll just see if I can grab this real quick. So if you can see here,
Oh yeah.
this material, I can get there we go. That's all silver. All
Okay.
those lines going through there, that's all silver, and it's actually coiled silver. And the reason it's silver and the reason it's coiled is because silver, number one, is conductive, obviously, but outside of every home is a copper grounding rod. And that
Hmm.
copper grounding rod is the rod that protects your house from getting hit with excessive amounts of, well, it basically prevents your house from blowing up if there's an lightning strike or there's a surge in electrical energy. What it does is the grounding outlet sends it into that copper grounding rod that's outside your home and it neutralizes the electrical energy. But on the flip side of that, because the copper grounding rods are also conductive, they pull the earth energy into the outlet, from the outlet into something like that blanket
Mm.
or bed sheet or bed cover. And then you can use that silver to basically do the exact same thing. So technically, when you're touching a piece of grounding fabric like that blanket or something else that's grounded, you're getting the exact same effect as if you're touching the earth. So there's no difference laying on the ground out in your grass or laying on that grounding blanket. You're still
Ah.
doing what we call earthing or grounding.
Hmm.
And so that is really profound. The earth ultimately is the ultimate med bed.
Hmm.
And the ancients were masters of utilizing the earth energy. And so the earth energy does a lot of different things. First off, if we don't connect to the earth, which the easiest way to think of it is we're electrical creatures
Hmm.
and the earth is a big battery. And the minute we disconnect from that battery, we've got issues,
Hmm.
serious issues. Like it's really, in all honesty, it's probably one of the probably the greatest reasons that we are seeing a massive decline in our health. And
Hmm.
when I say in our health, we're talking about everything's on the rise. I mean, we're
Sure.
technically more modern and we're technically smarter, but we're absolutely um, not as well educated as we probably should be. But to get to
Yeah.
that, according to the World Health Organization, it could be higher, at least minimum 8 out of 10 people that die on the planet Earth die from some type of inflammation related disease.
Hmm.
Inflammation is primarily caused by a buildup of cells referred to as free radical cells. And free radical cells by nature are there to do one thing. They're basically there to rid the body of bad cells. Your body's constantly replacing cells. And when you have a bad cell in the body that needs replacement, the body sends a white blood cell to that area. The white blood cell releases a free radical cell. The
Hmm.
free radical cell then takes out that bad cell.
Hmm.
But if you're not making contact with the earth and you don't have electrons, which we would call electron deficiency syndrome,
Hmm.
that free radical cell then strips an electron from a healthy cell and damages that cell. And that in turn gets the body to send another white blood cell to go now take out and fix that cell, which in turn sets off a chain reaction. And it's a
Hmm.
chain reaction and it's a growth of free radical cells, which are really just cells missing an electron. That's technically
Hmm.
what their issue is. And if you were making contact with the earth, your body would be saturated with electrons, and therefore there wouldn't be any of this buildup of inflammation. It would be neutralized instantly. Everything would be working as it should be.
Hmm.
But because we're not doing that, we're always short on electrons. We're never really making direct contact with the earth. We're definitely not doing it on a regular basis. And therefore, we have massive buildup of free radical cells, which is ultimately a very, very high leading cause of arthritis, soreness, stiffness,
Hmm.
um, a whole host of different things. But it also goes into things like like degrading your blood. Like that's probably one of the greatest things it does. What it does is by not being grounded, what happens is it starts affecting the molecular structure of your red blood cells. And instead of those red blood cells being round and bouncing around and kind of being on their own, they start losing their integrity and they start clumping and clotting. And now your blood is clumping and clotting and sticking, and it's not flowing right, and it's putting additional pressure on your heart to have to pump that blood. And within hours of being grounded, within hours of putting your feet on the ground, you can actually start restoring your blood, getting the blood viscosity down so that it's, making it easier for your body. You can get your blood back to where it should be.
Mm.
So what happens when you have clotted blood? What happens when your blood's thick? I mean, you're more prone to having heart issues and strokes and, a whole host of other things. But in addition to that, it's like running bad motor oil through a car. If you don't
Right.
change the oil in your car and it's always clumpy and it's nasty, does the car run? Yeah, it's going to run. It's going to crash faster.
Right.
It's not much different. And right. So this is what comes from grounding. Now, in addition to that, your body is an electrical entity as well. So you're bringing electrical energy in the body. The other thing that's interesting is that the brain waves of your mind, your brain, they
Hmm.
run at the exact same frequency of the earth, which is what we would call a slow rolling wave, but in a technical term, they would refer to that as the Schumann resonance, which is 7.83 hertz, which is just a number. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, but that's what it is. But that's the frequency that you run on. And isn't that amazing that for thousands of years, the people behind you that were in these pyramids, they were connected to the earth 100% of the time. They were running at full speed. They
Right.
were not having these types of problems. Now we're getting hit, obviously, with um, routers and Wi-Fi and all these different things. Well, what does that do? It takes that slow rolling wave and it starts turning it more like an EKG. So instead of a slow
Oh.
rolling wave, right? So one of the benefits that you get from being grounded, that's why we have on blankets and sheets and pillows, is that you're getting up to 20% deeper REM sleep because you're putting your
Mm.
brain waves on the exact same frequency set that they should be.
I
And
see.
so it's very, very helpful for getting deeper, better rest. And that's based on 21 scientific studies with white papers and all the data. So the grounding thing is a really big deal. It's kind of funny because we look at all this fancy technology here, but it's the technology that God gave us, which is actually very powerful. The
Hmm.
electrons come from the sun. The electrons come from the sun and they hit the Earth's atmosphere, they hit the Earth, and they bounce up into the ionosphere. And every time there's a lightning strike, and there's about 5,000 lightning strikes per hour going on all over the earth. Well, what that's doing is it's sending the electrical energy into the earth, which is primarily iron and nickel
Mm.
and various metals, but it's charging that. And what it's also doing is it's sending the electrons into the earth,
Mm.
right? So this is such a perfect setup that God has given us, that the earth is set up that way. And the minute that you get these rubber sole shoes on and you run around in those, you are completely disconnected from the earth. You're not
Right.
getting the electrons. And so then what's happening now, the inflammation, Andrew, is not, it's not, I sprained my ankle kind of inflammation. It's sort of what we would call silent inflammation. So it's not easily seen.
Hmm.
But that is technically, now think about that for a minute. If you've got an ongoing buildup of free radical cells that are going on for days, weeks, and months, and it's spiraling out of control and you don't even know you've got that problem, what happens now is that's eventually going to manifest in some type of a health condition.
Right.
And that's what's killing people, all over the planet. And something as simple as grounding is very easy remedy to start getting the inflammation out of the body.
Yeah.
Uh,
I agree. I think grounding's very important. It's helps me, and I've actually never tried grounding products like that. That's kind of cool that even while you're asleep, that can be really helpful. On the topic of sleep, because that's something I'm really fascinated with, is you mentioned lucid dreaming earlier, or even potentially like out of body experiences. Now something like behind you, or maybe another type of med bed. Do any of these? Um, induce these type of experiences or enhance that for maybe later on for someone to have more permission to enter that state? Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, well, all these technologies, that's the beauty about the plasma-based energy technology. It's inscribed in hieroglyphics and pyramids. It was used thousands of years ago. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can dance around this, but this technology did not come from guys with sticks and stones living in caves. I
Mm.
mean, there's still technology over in Egypt that they still can't replicate today or even move like 900-ton stones. They
Mm.
found now that there's bases that are coming down under the pyramids that are almost a kilometer deep that are
Oh, right.
massive with spirals under them. That was there. The people that were doing this were highly advanced, highly advanced people. But to get to the lucid dreaming,
Mhm.
the goal ultimately with all this technology certainly is to have your body, your third dimensional body, in ideal condition. That's
Right.
certainly what you want. But what it's actually really doing on a subtle level is it's raising the frequency that your body and your mind and your soul are running on. And as you start raising that frequency, you start tapping into all your metaphysical abilities, which would be intuition, clairvoyance,
Mm.
compassion, lucid dreaming. All these different things are all really based on energy and frequency. And so, and you're familiar obviously with Akashic records and,
Hmm.
all these different things, but you enter into those by being at the right frequency.
Mm.
And so ultimately, what this technology is doing, especially the plasma technology, is it's raising your conscious awareness, it's raising your conscious frequency. It's the kind of thing where you start thinking about your mom, and a minute later she calls.
Right.
And, all these kind of things, because you're actually learning now that you are communicating with your thoughts and that there really is no space between here and you or here and, the moon.
Hmm.
Like everything is instant and it gets into some physics, obviously, right?
Hmm.
But it's all proven physics, it's all technology. So that ultimately um, is the end goal. The end
Hmm.
goal is to tap into the gifts that we've been given and start using those and becoming more loving and compassionate people and using the technology not only to live a healthier life, obviously we want to do that. And,
Sure.
if we can get some extra years out of the body, that's even better.
Hmm.
And to take it to the finish line and be as strong and vibrant as possible and not let yourself start having these breakdowns where the oil didn't get changed and now,
Right.
you've got a problem with the engine. And so as much as I love all the technology, I like to embrace it in with all the other things that we have access to, which namely would be a little bit of sun once in a while, which is good for you.
Hmm.
Um, like with anything, too much of anything is not good, but some is good.
Hmm.
Tapping into the earth, whether you're doing it with grounding technology or whether you are able to get out and do that. And
Hmm.
then mixing in the technology that we've got, for stimulating the body, giving the cells what they need, and then ultimately working on enhancing our spiritual abilities.
Very cool. And then with this, do you have people visit you to have sessions with this? Do you sell these to individuals, or is it more geared towards like businesses? How do people connect with you, or how do people go about getting involved in this, trying these
Yeah,
out?
so yeah, I do have some other tech. Give me just a sec here. I'm going to grab some of this other stuff here.
Yeah, sure.
Um, one of the other technologies that we've got, which is super cool, that's really good for just a basic consumer, is
And
this
what?
terahertz wand.
Oh, okay.
And if I can plug this thing in, which I can, something like this throws the terahertz frequency directly in the body with red light crystals. It has like a multitude of different technologies. It's really good for skin and wrinkles. The red light technology has got a lot of data showing how good it is for skin. It's helping grow hair.
Mm.
Um, Something like this is like it's focusing all the energy into a very small area. And
Hmm.
this is being used a lot for stiffness, soreness, arthritis. So we
Okay.
sell these things like hotcakes. I've been selling these things for years. And the testimonials that come back on these are absolutely mind blowing. This is actually very advanced, very powerful technology.
Mm.
And then you've got stuff like the Celestial Pod, which, but to answer your question, all the technology here is available at no charge. We basically invite people to come use it because we want to document the results that people are getting, and we want to make it accessible and make it available.
Hmm.
And so we do have a place here in Richmond, Virginia that people are welcome to come to. I
Okay.
usually recommend if you're in the area, come as much as you want. But if you're not in the
Sure.
area and you're going to come, please try to stay 3 days,
Mm.
because there's something magical about 369, which was Tesla's favorite numbers.
Hmm.
But I find that if we can get people to stay 369 or at least 3 days, we
Hmm.
we seem to get the best possible outcomes. And we have people coming in from all over the country, even out of the country, to use the technology. Um, but there's a lot of stuff that's smaller technology that's easy to purchase, like the grounding technology,
Yeah.
a grounding pillowcase. The one thing also that I just want to point out one more time
Yeah, sure.
is the one thing about like this silver.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this blanket right here, you have at least, 4 to 5 ounces of silver.
Hmm.
And Andrew, I'm not going to get into age, but I think I'm a little older than you. But there was at one time a campaign that was run when I was younger
Hmm.
from a Wendy's commercial, and the lady used to say, "Where's the beef?"
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, it was like because they were making fun of the companies that sold these little tiny burger patties, and the bun was
Uh-huh.
this big and the beef was that big.
Right, right.
With grounding technology, it's only as good as the amount of silver for the most
Mm.
part.
I
And a
see.
lot of the technology that's out there, it's such a minimal amount of silver that it's really, you can't even see it. People say, well, I got a grounding mat. Okay, yeah, but how much time do you sit on a mat, and how much time are you going to lay in bed? There's a significant difference normally there. But the other part about it is that this technology um, is the reason I was talking about coiled silver is that because when you start doing this with the fabric, which is going to happen normally, say you're moving it, twisting it,
Yeah.
the lower tiered stuff is going to be a strand of silver. Well, if you start bending that silver back and forth, you're going to break that strand of silver, and it's not functional at that point.
Sure.
With a coiled silver, and that gets into what we would call the slinky, um, it's going to stretch and bend and flex, right?
Mm.
So it's going to last a lot longer. Now, inside the blanket and in some of the other technologies, there's also a mixture of tourmaline, amethyst, and other crystals that when you lay on it also does release far infrared light. So you are, in addition to getting the grounding benefits, you're also getting the benefits of red light technology or far infrared.
Mm.
So there's multiple technologies and some of the different things that are out there. But these are the kind of things that everybody should have as just like a baseline technology. Like this isn't Woodstock and hippies, and there's real science behind it. And so that kind of technology is very popular. The grounding technology, the terahertz wands, we have a watch that
Hmm.
runs 1200 sound frequencies up to 1200 into your wrist. So for just about any time, place, or circumstance,
Hmm.
man, woman, kids, elderly, there's frequencies that you can run into your wrist
Mm.
and just let those things go. And that's really powerful technology. And these are all things that, 100, 200, 500, they're somewhat what I would just say in the affordable range.
Sure.
Uh, Something like the celestial chamber is going to get a little more expensive. The plasma energy spheres, which is the phi ray system, is
Mhm.
about 7 grand,
Okay.
which, considering what that thing can do, is astronomically affordable.
Mm.
I mean, that technology is I mean, it's really mind blowing. We've had a lot of people come through here. And like I said, I really like to just sit there more like in a science type mode and say, okay, what are you here for? What are you dealing with? And let's let it rip, and let's throw you in all this stuff and see what comes out of it.
Mm.
Um, Now, we also do have a bioscan technology, which you can put a set of headphones on, and within, depending on how deep of a scan you run, within 10 to 30 minutes, I will know every single cell of your body what's going on with you. I'll know from a 1 to 6 what's optimal, what's least optimal.
Oh,
And
cool.
I can then look at that. Like for me, there was some internal issues that I had when I did it,
Hmm.
and for the most part, I consider myself healthy, and I am. I mean, I'm not, but but there was a lot of issues and things going on internally that I was not aware of.
Hmm.
And so the bioscan not only can give you 3D images of everything, and then it lays out all the biomarkers. So for your heart, as an example, you might have 40, 50 biomarkers. They're looking at not just the heart, but every section of the heart, the valves, the inside, the outside. And then what it can do is it can run corrective frequency sets. So once it does the initial analysis, then that thing can run the corrective frequency sets in through the body. And then we can run a report and do a before and after and have
Ah,
actual tangible data to show what the improvements have been.
that's really cool.
It is, it's really cool. And it'll give you an overall uh, outlook, and it'll say overall you went from this to that. And there's times where there won't be any benefit. Like with me initially, um, it was my pancreas
Hmm.
that was messed up, and it was all sixes, which is like oh man, what's going
What's
on?
going on with that? Yeah.
I didn't even know, right? I had no idea. And
Yeah.
they ran the corrective frequencies. There was no improvement at all.
Huh.
And me being me, understanding what's going on, I'm like, wow, that is really messed up. It's been messed up for a while. It's going to take weeks and months of me getting after it and getting into the technologies to get this squared away.
Hmm.
However, if I don't know, I can't fix it. I can't fix what I don't know. If I don't know
Sure.
there's something wrong, I wouldn't even be running frequency sets for that.
Right.
And I have another set of technologies, another set of plasma, which I will show you real quick. It runs
Yeah,
off
sure.
of an app, and I'm going to try my best to see if you can see it.
Yeah, I can see it. That's good.
And I can scroll through here and say, oh, let's see, what are we going to pick today? Oh, liver, kidneys, and adrenal glands. And then, then I can put it on there and hit play.
Hmm.
I don't know if you can hear it. It's throwing off a tone, which
Okay.
is
Yeah, I
for
can.
that specific part of the body, but
Hmm.
it Bluetooths into the spheres. So now they're running very specific frequency sets for very specific parts of the body,
Oh, I
which is
see.
different than what the other system does. The other system is just running like this freight train of frequencies through, and it's a little more powerful. This
Hmm.
one is sort of splicing off individual frequency sets for very specific parts of the body. And
Interesting.
so, when you culminate the data and say, okay, well, let's run Andrew through a scan and what's up with Andrew? Oh, good, he's perfect. Well, we'll energize you or we'll do something else. But for the most part, there's usually something that we can say, let's dial in and work on this. Now, if there's nothing wrong, which I mean, a lot of times there wouldn't be, then maybe we just work on pineal gland or work on things
Hmm.
that are more for opening up spiritual awareness and
Hmm.
enhancing some of your metaphysical, or we can get into just about anything. Sometimes the best stuff is the tune up. It's
Hmm.
not that something is even wrong. It's like, you know what, let's run a 5 minutes of the thyroid, and then let's do 5 minutes of the liver, and then once we're done with that, we'll run our chakra cascade and run the full spectrum and kind of charge the energy of the body and align
Sure.
and charge all the chakras. So
And then Sean, do you sorry to cut you off, but
you're good.
for most people that come to you or where they purchase these things or they visit you where you're at, are most of the clientele interested in the physical healing benefits, or is it more the spiritual? Do you find it's a kind of full gamut combination of these things? Like,
I would say that 70 to 80% of the people are here for physical bodily things.
got it.
But I do find that a lot of people, once they understand what it's doing and they start feeling it, because you come out charged. Now,
Hmm.
I didn't talk about the Tesla multi-wave oscillators, but they're in the back of the room here. I started off talking about those. Um,
And by the way, you're the room you're in looks like something from like a futuristic movie almost, like a I
it
like it though.
is. Yeah, I mean, and that's really my whole mentality is the future is here now.
Hmm.
You know, I'm not I'm just not a guy that sits around and waits for things to happen. I like to push and make things happen. And that's why it's so important when you talk about med beds and all that. There's a lot of people that think, well, if you're not getting them from the government, there's just no hope.
Hmm.
That to me is just absolutely hilarious because there's hundreds, if not thousands of people that we've worked with and worked with from various centers that have gotten amazing benefits. So
Mm.
for anybody who wants to wait around for a free ride from the government, God bless you.
Right.
That train is always, gonna someday it's gonna come in, and it will come in. But unfortunately, you look at the third dimensional reality that we're in, and it's pretty chaotic. And
Mm.
that's not going to be the ideal scenario for these types of things to come out. So, as much as we're all hopeful and we all want them to come out as quickly as possible, they're not there yet. And it's, I believe, at least 2 years, maybe three off. I mean, a lot of things have to change, but we cannot be in all these different conflicts all over the world and fighting,
Mm.
and all that stuff has to kind of simmer down.
Mm.
But to get back to the multi-wave oscillators, they understood Tesla. First of all, Tesla was brilliant. A lot of this technology all came originally from Nikola Tesla
Mm.
and his work. So, for anybody out there that knows Nikola Tesla, he was a very highly intelligent individual. And there's a lot of people that would attest to that are even modern scientists that are
Mm.
building technology based on the work that this guy did over 100 years ago.
Mm.
Every cell in your body resonates and vibrates. And so it's called oscillation of the cell. And cells have the ability to create and oscillate. And when you start having health issues, what's happening ultimately is that the vibrational rate of the cell is going down.
Mm.
And so as you get into worse and worse health issues, the vibrational rate of the cells keeps decreasing. And they knew this. There was a gentleman named Georges Lakhovsky, who was a Russian scientist that picked up the work of Tesla. They kind of worked together on the development of this. But Georges Lakhovsky was really the guy that picked up this stuff and said, let me go build a prototype. And he was a brilliant, brilliant man in his own right.
Mm.
Um, but they realized, wow, if people start getting messed up, so what if we could restore the cell to its peak maximum oscillation and bring it back to its full health? We
Mhm.
could turn people around that were really messed up. And they did. And the multi-wave oscillator does three things. It restores the oscillation rate of the cell. It has 12 rings on it, which are the 12 most beneficial frequency sets for the body. And just like the spheres, because they were developed primarily off the basic premise that you have one on the left and one on the right, and you create a field in the middle.
Mhm.
It basically sends those frequencies in the body, restores the oscillation rate. But to go back to the electrical part of it, because the electrical part of it is a big component, it recharges the electrical energy and the energy in the cells.
Mm.
And it restores the body with electrical energy, which is really important. So when you're 30 years old, you run on about 100 millivolts of electrical energy. When
Mm.
you're 100 years old or in 70s, you're running on 30 millivolts of electrical energy.
Mm.
And so the amount of energy that your body has is decreasing.
Sure.
So by charging your body with electrical energy, you have more energy to want to go do a walk. You have more energy to want to go hit the gym. You're pumped up, you're energized, right?
Mhm.
And that's for a good reason, because your body is getting, it's like you charging the battery, right? Just like you do with the car. And the interesting thing is that, as you start doing that, most people have been sick from one point of their life or another. And we all know when you're sick, you don't want to go do a run. You don't want to go do a walk. You don't want to hit
Sure.
the gym. And why is that? That is because the body's saying that energy that you've got is going to be used to get you over the hill,
Right.
and we're going to get you back to good health. And then, any reserve energy, you can get down to the fridge and do whatever. But when you have restored electrical energy, now you also have the ability to be more active and have more energy to want to do stuff. You're like, instead of being lethargic and sitting around, you're more, I want to go get out of the house and go do something, right? And so these are technologies. Not only did they have amazing results with what they were able to do, they put these in hospitals in New York, had amazing results with them,
Mm.
a lot of clinical information there. So, and all this stuff, really, it's beautiful, because if you go out and start Googling it and do a little um, due diligence, you can really start digging in and getting into some really cool stuff.
Mm.
But, these are technologies that really never made it to the mainstream. And so I still embody those and I still love them because I understand what they do. And I look at it, and is it as flashy as the stuff behind me, or is it as flashy as a med bed? It's not. But
Mm.
is it really powerful and really effective? The other thing that's important to note is that, like, a healthy cell vibrates around 15,000 vibrations per second.
Mm.
Garbage cells, which I would refer to as pathogens, viruses, and all the cells you don't want, which come with a multitude of different names and configurations, which I'm not going to mention, they resonate at low frequency.
Mm,
So what happens to a garbage cell when it gets hit with the high frequency that the healthy cells dance to? It dissipates it and gets rid of it.
mm,
So there was a lot of things that were happening where they were getting rid of a lot of different health conditions because they were able to get rid of the pathogens, the viruses, and all the other garbage cells. There's a lot that to be said right now on Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, ALS. I deal a lot with ALS because we
mm.
sell ICU beds, so that I'm every day dealing with people with ALS and paraplegic and quadriplegic. What there's, like, yeah, actually, even interesting thing here. There's these little patches, which is
What
nothing
is
more
that?
than it's a patch. It's basically a patch of crystals, which we also sell, but we're light beings, right, Andrew? So we're
Hmm.
throwing off literally light. We're like starlight beings. Like there's you were talking about earlier when you were talking about the reading, the R reading,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Okay. And there was a gentleman, a Russian scientist, that developed something called Kirlian photography, where they can
Mm,
take a picture of you and actually see your aura. They can actually see the light coming off your body. And that's what they're doing is they're reading the light frequency, the light spectrum coming off and seeing how bright, how wide, and
mm,
like you can tell, but to make a long story short, this is a patch of crystals that are on the back of this patch that when your light goes out, it reflects a portion of it back into your body. And what it does is it activates copper peptides, and
mm,
copper peptides activate dormant stem cells.
mm.
And so what that patch is doing is it's activating dormant stem cells. Now, we've talked about energy and electricity and all these different things, but the other part about aging is that as your body, as you get older, as you slow down on the number of stem cells that become activated, the aging process increases immensely. So as that scale goes down for activation of stem cells, aging goes this way. And
Mm.
so if you can figure out ways to activate and keep dormant stem cells, now you're replacing all these different things, right? And so this is all technology that's enhancing healthier, longer, healthier, happier lives. And it's not, a pack of these patches for a month is maybe $100.
Okay.
Um, I wouldn't say it's necessarily super expensive, but I wouldn't say that
Yeah.
it's cheap, but but I work with a lady, actually a lady that turned me on to these works for a stem cell clinic,
Oh, okay.
and
Interesting.
it costs about 5 to 10 or 15 grand to get stem cell injections,
Yeah. Yep.
right? And so basically what it comes down to is the place that she works at, they
Hmm.
put people on these patches 60 days before they come in to harvest stem cells because they get a larger harvest of stem cells that way. And then when they do their injections, they're going to have obviously a better outcome if you can harvest more stem cells to put back into the body.
Right.
And
Oh, sorry, Sean. I
go
just
ahead.
wanted to, so it sounds like you were kind of already in this field. How did you get into this type of the stuff that's in the background or the medical beds? Like, how did you come across this? And how did that kind of change things for you?
That's a great question. It actually gets into what I was talking about here just a bit ago, is that I'm in the medical industry.
Right.
So over the years, I've sold and built and equipped hospitals all over the world, a lot in Africa, Mexico, Latin America.
Okay.
But one of the things that I do that's very difficult for a lot of people to get is I deal with the highest, most intense medical equipment for home use.
Mm,
So a lot of the companies that sell stuff to hospitals do not deal with home care. So if you're in a situation where you need a high level of patient care at home, you have to come through a secondary provider, and a lot of people do not want to mess with. They do not want to mess with um, medical equipment for home use. So we do.
mm. Oh, I
And so
see.
on a daily basis, I'm dealing with people with ALS, MS, quadriplegic, paraplegic, stroke, heart attack, you name it.
Mm,
And the whole medbed thing had been kind of playing around. That's kind of like almost like a mythical term in some ways because, people have been hearing about it and they're hearing about it. And they are out there. There are places that are using them, not available to the public, but I would say it's off-planet technology. It's not, you know, when we talked earlier about how a lot of this stuff was built, it wasn't built, at the time by
mm.
by the ancients or off-planet, civilizations.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have been exposed to it. A lot of people have had access to it, and we've had a lot of them on our channel. But I
Hmm.
said, wow, well, let me figure out what is out there. Let me see if there really is something out there that can help these people because, a lot of times just having something like a grounding blanket or sheet that can
Hmm.
reduce inflammation, that can restore a lot of your day-to-day activity. Like I have two testimonials that always come to mind. One
Hmm.
is a lady who's 92. Her name's Isabella. It's on my YouTube channel,
Hmm.
and her friend also. And they're like, it's painful to get up. It's hard to move around. It's a problem. When you're in soreness and pain a lot, it takes a lot of energy out of you to just get up and do your normal functions, right?
Sure.
And so, by being able to just reduce inflammation and get active again, now I want to start doing walks. Now I'm going to go dancing. Now I'm going to go play cards with my friends. I'm going to start doing a lot of the things that being in a pain mode took away from me. But we've got other technologies like other multi-wave oscillator technologies and Tesla coils that are really good for stimulating the body and giving it what it needs to help regenerate, different parts of the body.
Hmm.
If you talk about people um, that have had um, issues with their back, whether it's a broken
Hmm.
back or a broken neck, well, does anybody know that a stem cell can become any part of your body? It can become a nerve. It can become blood. It can become cartilage. Your brain sends the stem cell to where it's needed the most.
Hmm.
So a lot of times when you're taking patches, you don't see a lot of effect initially because it could have been the pancreas. It could have been other parts of the body where those stem cells are needed more than aesthetics, where, oh, my skin isn't so wrinkled, or, oh, my hair isn't, turning gray as much as it was, or whatever.
Hmm.
But, knowing that these technologies are out there and then getting them out to the general public to me was the greatest gift because I feel like even myself, I'm in this industry. I've been doing this a while. I
Sure.
don't feel like I mean, I still feel like there's always a lot to learn. The
Yeah.
amount of stuff that I know is, far less than the amount of knowledge that's still out there. And I'm really grateful because I work with some very gifted scientists and physicists who jump on and share this knowledge.
Hmm.
Um, I often tell people, with a lot of this stuff, because it's not mainstream, we're not getting it. Goes back to what we start off our conversation. This is stuff that if you're in India, you're not having conversations about grounding. They already get this.
Hmm.
They're running around in leather sandals and they're sitting in yoga postures in the forest and they're tapped in.
Hmm.
Um, but getting that knowledge and understanding how we connect and how we make minor changes in our daily routines to get this technology into the body and what it does and why it's beneficial and why we should do it.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's really not always about selling a product. It's really about giving them information and knowledge. And
Right.
sometimes, there's a product that might be helpful, but if you understand what's happening and what it's doing, there's a lot of different things also that you can do that are going to be beneficial for you.
Hmm.
And that's why I love what you do because, it's a labor of love. It's about taking knowledge and information and giving it out to the world and trying to make the world a better place, which is kind of where we started this whole conversation.
Right.
And it doesn't happen without Andrew. It doesn't happen without, and I have so much respect for people like yourself, which I'm always super grateful for, that there are people that say, you know what, I am gonna create this podcast and I am gonna
Hmm.
find these people and find these subjects and get this knowledge out to the world because that's what we need right now. We need more of that and more love and compassion and
Yeah.
and just raise the frequency and raise the vibration of the planet. But it happens one person at a time,
Hmm.
and it's based on conversations like this where we can, share knowledge and information and help each other, get it out through various channels. So, I
Absolutely.
yeah,
I
I always
appreciate that.
find that
It is important.
being
It
in
is important.
yeah, being in a mode of grateful. And the last thing that I'll say, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Sure.
One of the most important things is being in the present now moment
Hmm.
right now, like not worrying about later tonight, not being about, and what I find that really dials me in and really centers me is when I go into a mode of being grateful. And I'll say, I'm
Hmm.
really grateful right now that I'm on this conversation with Andrew and
Hmm.
that I'm able to meet him and learn more about him and about his channel. And I'm grateful that I have the ability to get up and walk to the other room. And I'm grateful that I've got a nice place to stay tonight when I get home, and I'm grateful that I've got food in the fridge. And I go on these modes of getting myself into a mode of being grateful, but grateful for the present moment,
Mm,
because the what was it? The Buddhist always said that the greatest source of depression and anxiety is trying to live in the future and not being in the present moment. You're already
mm,
trying to project and create problems and issues or addressing things that have nothing to do with
right.
being on this call right now, right?
Mm,
And or it's the opposite, and all you're doing is refueling and regurgitating things from the past that no
mm,
longer serve you, but
right.
you can't let it go, right? And so, but if you can get into the present moment and you can shift your energy, a really fast, quick way to do that is by going into a mode of being grateful.
Mm.
And it doesn't matter how bad you're getting, how bad the blender is that you're getting put into, and
Yep.
there and the blender can run, but you have to be able to kind of pull out of that, and you have to be able to center, and you have to be able to get yourself into a mode of being grateful, and push yourself out of stress, anxiety, and all these other modes of energy that are really not good for you at all. And
Mm,
when you understand that in any given second, anything and everything is 100% completely possible, and that you're an infinite being, and that your thoughts and your mindset create your third dimensional reality, you have to kind of do that over and over, and you have to absorb it so that you become the teaching. You're not
mm,
teaching, you're becoming the teaching. There's a huge difference between saying that
right.
I know something and actually living it.
Right.
And I found for myself personally that I was too much of a student and not much, I don't even want to say a teacher, but
Mm,
not being a practitioner.
mm,
I don't need to listen to this stuff over and over. I know enough. Start acting on it and start living it and tuning into it and becoming the teaching. You know enough. The problem sometimes is that you think that there's too many regulations. I have to keep repeating these affirmations. You don't.
mm,
All you have to do is put your mind into the place that you want to be and become it. And it's so simple, and we overcomplicate everything. And that has to do with healing. That has to do with losing weight. That has to do with getting a better job. That has to do with all these different things, right? The ultimate mindset and the ultimate med bed is your mind. And
mm,
unless that mind is tuned in and it's focused and you understand the potential and you harness that potential, all these technologies are silly little toys that you'll use and get benefit from, but more than likely you'll come back to them again because something in you hasn't shifted and you haven't become that ultimate spiritual person that we all have the ability to be.
mm. Sean, that's an awesome message. Usually I leave at the very end. I feel like you're very much psychic because I leave at the very end a little time and space for you to just have like a final message, and I'm like, wow, that was powerful. That was great. So thank you for sharing that. I think people are gonna really connect with that and enjoy that. Yeah, gratitude and finding the present moment and living your wisdom. I think is very true, very important. So.
Yeah, I love, there's a guy named Neville Goddard who I
Mhm.
love and adore. And I love everybody, Bob Proctor and Napoleon Hill and
Mhm.
um, Louis Hay and all these great, great, great people. And they all give you in part knowledge, right? But Neville Goddard is live in the end, right? And every one of his speeches start the same way: with God, all things are possible.
Mhm.
But you act and breathe and live as if the outcome that you're looking for has already been accomplished. That is what accomplishes that, is assuming it's already happened. It's not going, oh, I hope I get that job. I already have the job. I've already
Right.
got it. It's a six-figure job, and it's what I always wanted. And you live with that passion, and you're excited, and you live it, and you feel it. And then that's what makes it a reality, right? That's what
Mm.
makes it happen, is the passion and all those other things. And does that mean that you're going to go through the washing machine and you're going to get spun and go up that way? You will, and you'll
Yeah.
get spun that way too. But you'll understand, you know what? I've gotten out of my mode. I need to circle back. And all those things are okay. It's okay to get taken off and saying, oh my God, I just got called out without or this
Yeah.
is drama here, or whatever. It's all part of it, right? But you just let that kind of go off, but you never lose that focus. One of the
Yeah.
beautiful things is you go to bed as if and sleep as if you're already in the bed that you want to be
Hmm.
in that house in Manhattan or that beach house, or you're going to work, you're already envisioning this amazing job where you get to use your creative skills. But, you know, when you lose your job because you're doing that, it's because you needed to,
Right.
sometimes getting to where you need to go there, it's not but you don't ever look at it in the present. You say, okay, I'm acknowledging that this is happening to me. In 30, 60, 90 days, I'm going to look back and say, wow, if that didn't happen, even as
Mm.
uncomfortable and as tough as it was, I wouldn't be here right now.
Right. I find that being in the washer machine or and all that, the spinning out, like it's very challenging. It's not always pleasant or fun. But I find when I'm on the other side, you can kind of reflect and go, oh, now I kind of understand. Or you have that. I tend to find I have the gratitude. Sometimes I need to go through that washer machine type experience. Then I'm like, well, okay, now I'm really grateful because I made it through that. I'm on the other side, and now I feel a sense of personal power, strength, or whatever it might be.
You develop mental fortitude because you've got to go through something, but never forget when you're experiencing the most pain, you're going through the most growth.
Hmm.
When you're dealing with the most challenging situations, you're dealing with the most growth. And our goal in life is to grow. And sometimes the better the beating, the better the growth. And it's a very hard message, and it's not one that
Yeah.
I put my arms around and embrace and like, oh yeah, just put me through the grinder. I
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
it's like I don't need all that. I'm actually quite good the way I'm at right now,
Right.
but it is something that's very true. Like the more intense and the more things that you go through, you come to a point where the foundation is so strong and the ability to shake you is getting very difficult because
Mm,
you've been through so much. You already know that you can push through. You already
mm,
know that you're going to get through this. You already know that I've been through worse and I'll always get through this again. And you develop this inner strength where it's like, I will persevere and I will get through this. Is it uncomfortable? It's very uncomfortable. Is it challenging? Absolutely. It 100% is.
mhm.
But, but behind it all, there's a greater message and a greater meaning. And, if you can look at that and deal with that and underlying, that doesn't always make it easier. I mean, in all honesty, I have had the snot beat out of me so hard in the last couple months. And I mean,
Mm.
mentally, physically, and spiritually. We've taken on stuff that I probably shouldn't have, but I said, go big or go home. And then I took it on and said, oh my dear God, I'm like riding a bull. And I thought I was getting on a pony, and if I can just stay in this thing, I'll be happy.
Right.
But but there's a lot of growth there. And
Sure.
I think, the other thing, Andrew, that's always good for everybody is that we all share these types of experiences, right? And there might, when we're doing videos like this, we're
Hmm.
doing it for the person watching the video.
Hmm.
You're doing it to help the world. I'm doing it to help the world. You didn't find the video found you because today
Mm.
there was a message that came through here somewhere. Maybe you needed something to help you sleep better, whatever. But I feel like maybe this is a time right now because things are kind of crazy right now.
Yeah.
Maybe there was something that we're dealing with on a personal, emotional level. It's like, yeah, I'm going to persevere. I am going to get through this. I am going to find the right person for me. I'm going to get out of these dead end relationships that I'm just kind of in for convenience and comfort. And I'm going to
Hmm.
manifest the right person. Is it hard getting out of a relationship? It's super hard. It really can be painful. Is it a
Hmm.
part of life? It absolutely is. But if you don't get out of that one, how do you find the right one? If you don't get out of the dead end job that's taking you nowhere, that doesn't passionately make you happy, that doesn't it's like I love going to work.
Right.
And right, but there transition and change is always difficult. One of the best friends that works with me said, hey man, I might be getting another job. And I thought, oh God. And
Mm.
I thought, well, guess what, man? This is how the world works. We're always in a state of change, and how you adapt and how you deal with it. But you don't squeeze and hold on to it. You just let it flow, man. And you ride the river of life, and you
Right.
let the river take you where you're going to go. And don't fight the current, man. Just let it go. And then look at the surroundings around you and go, how do I make this as beneficial as possible? And if this transition does happen, I know I have faith that God will send the right person to me that'll help fill that gap.
Yeah.
It's like you're always navigating thoughts and you're always navigating situations. And How they turn out is exactly how you project them. And
Mm,
so it's really important not to recycle negative stuff over and over. I'm so mad. I'm so this. Okay, I get that. We all get that. I get like that. But
mm,
how do I get past that? How do I push through that? What is the mindset? What is it that I'm looking to accomplish? What would fix that? And then put your mind in the place where it's already fixed and
mm,
jump out of it and start using these powerful spiritual, we're spiritual beings having human experiences, right? We're not
mm-hmm,
humans that, oh wow, I had a dream about Jesus or something, which is beautiful. I don't want to ever say anything negative about that,
mm-hmm,
but we're spiritual beings. This is where we act. This is our world. This matter, this third dimensional matter, is nothing more. In Indian and Vedic terms, they call it Maya, but it's nothing more than condensed light particles. And
mm,
when you go into the particle, you realize that 90% of it is empty. And
mm-hmm,
when you go into the particle, you realize that your mind can control the movement of the light particle.
mm,
And you can control all of this, but you just don't know it.
right.
And so you empower yourself, right? And you start taking control of things and picking the peak outcomes and saying, yeah, my little baby girl, I'm going to get her that car that she wants or whatever it is. I mean, you're going
Mm-hmm,
to, but for everybody that's out there, God bless you. Thank you for Andrew, and thank you for channels like this where we can have these conversations. Because Andrew, we always think I'm talking to you. We think, oh, I'm talking to them.
mm-hmm.
I'm always talking to myself because sometimes I need to hear the message myself.
Right, right. Yep. I agree with that. I've made videos where I look back at them, I go, oh, I needed to hear that. I'll take my own advice. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
that. Yeah. This has been a pleasure meeting you and speaking with you. For those that are listening that are want to learn more about you and your companies and what you offer, how do they connect with you and discover that?
Yeah. So our website is healthylifetechnology.com,
Yeah.
www.healthylifetechnology.com. We're in Richmond, Virginia. We ship stuff all over the world. You're always welcome to come visit us. So if you say, hey, I want to come check that place out for a few days, we would love to have you down here.
Nice.
And you can call up our main office here, which is 804-495-0770. There's two girls at work here that are phenomenal that take you through and explain the technology, Abby and Christine.
Hmm.
And we just ask that you set an appointment so we make sure that we're
Sure.
here for you, and we know that we've got to have some time just put aside for you.
Yeah.
But we always are welcome, and anybody that that's out doing good in the world that wants to share comments, put them in the comment section here on your podcast.
Yeah.
And anybody that has a message to share, or Andrew, I love having guys like you on our channel. We're
Hmm.
actually both recording because I want to promote you and what you're doing. I feel like,
I appreciate that.
my job is to do everything I can to support people like yourself that are taking on the task of booking podcasts and putting time aside and scheduling. And you're very professional. You got questions ready and you've done your homework and you take a lot of pride in what you're doing. And I feel like my job is to help support people like yourself. So we can either do another podcast where
Yeah, sure.
I bring you on and we do another one. If it's up, we can talk after we sign off here,
Sure,
and I
yeah.
can put this one up and put your channel and put all your information because I'm kind of like the servant of the servant, and my job is to promote and do everything I can to support people like yourself that are out there doing good in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm definitely interested and I really appreciate that. Yeah, Sean, it's been awesome. Tell you got a lot of life experience and a lot of wisdom, and I'm happy you kind of are here to share that and hope we can speak again. So yeah, thank you.
Looking forward to it, brother. I wish you nothing but the best. I'm going to put this on pause for just a sec and then I'll shut it down. And if
Sure.
you want to shut down or if you want to just chat for a minute or two, we can just say goodbye. Or if you got to go, we'll call it a wrap right now. But thanks again, man, for everything you do.
Absolutely. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time, okay? Take care.